Welcome to Snyder's Inc., where the fun never ends. Reactions, gaming, and more with Josh as your friend. Tune in, buckle up, it's a ride you don't wanna miss. Snyder's Inc., let's dive in, feel the ultimate bliss.
Hello everybody, welcome to Snyder's Inc., and today we got a wrestling related reaction. This one's from a channel called Parts Unknown, and this is the 10 greatest rivals of CM Punk's career. CM Punk, probably the most polarizing wrestler in AEW history, and a wrestler who has caused a lot of stir. So we gonna get right into this. Ladies and gentlemen, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, comment what you think down below. Let's go.
Look in his eyes, what do you see? The cult of a particularly divisive personality. As we all await company man Punk's AEW return.
Okay, that's clever. That was kind of funny. I didn't expect that turn, even though I probably should have. Yeah, Punk's supposed to return soon to AEW, and I have zero hope for that return. I expect a shit show, because Punk's MO is wait, unfortunately. Punk's AEW was good, but the man has to stay with the world. You cannot put this man in a world title position probably ever in his career again, because he clearly can't handle it. One, his body can't handle it, but two, he can't handle it himself. He can't handle that pressure, I don't think.
And the inevitable media firestorm that will be sure to come with it, brackets, too late, close brackets, we figured now would be the perfect time to reflect on the best matches and stories that CM Punk has ever been part of and the dancing partners that did the waltz with him. Punk is a different breed for today's day and age, an honest-to-God draw, an absolute lightning rod, and one of the most captivating performers in the wrestling business as a babyface, a heel, or anything in between. Punk has made his fair share of enemies inside the ring and out, and thankfully the former has helped make for some of the best stories in wrestling this century. I'm Tempest, hailing from Parts Unknown, and these are the 10 greatest rivals of CM Punk's career. But before we get on with our list, make sure of course that you like this video, subscribe, and enable notifications to always on.
So the audio sounds weird here, but I don't know if it's just in my version of this or what it is, but it sounds very weird here, but hopefully it's not too bad.
So you never miss a fun list just like it, and make sure you check out all of the other entries we've had in the Greatest Rivals sub-series of lists here on Parts Unknown. Honorable
I should have looked at, I didn't know there was more of these. I should probably do the rest of them.
mention Triple H and Vince McMahon. On one hand, you could make the argument that Trips and Vinnie Mac could be the top 2 spots on this list, but on the other hand, outside of Money in the Bank 2011, Punk's intensely personal rivalries with Vince and his doofus son-in-law, kayfabe and otherwise, didn't lead to the uptick in business that either should have. The summer of Punk circa 2011 was about half of what it should have been, and Punk and his momentum suffered for it. Number 10, Colt Cabana. And now for something more.
His greatest rival in the ring and the person he hates more than everyone else outside of it. I feel so bad for Colt Cabana. This poor man can't catch a break when it comes up. He literally spent a whole media scrum that fucking tarnished his whole fucking career. Punk spent all that just shitting on Colt Cabana for no reason. Literally, Colt's name was not brought up. Punk brought him up. Get over it, Punk. Get over yourself. Like, grow up, would ya?
More cheerful, and pardon me if I leave my sarcasm setting on for this one. Now, in contrast to the last entry, while it is impossible to deny that Choco Mountain Punk's public rivalry with Colt Cabana is what comes to mind when people think of their names in the same sentence, that should absolutely not erase the work the two did together early in their careers. During the dark days of late 90s, early 2000s indie wrestling, before there was ever a Ring of Honor for young wrestlers to grow and make their name, they had to do so by wrestling night after night after night, having great matches and cutting great promos. Punk and Cabana were always tied to one another until they desperately needed to sever that cord, but their matches were an attraction of Midwest wrestling while they were coming up in the industry. They formed the Second City Saints when they got to ROH and remained linked until the very end, with Punk wrestling Cabana in his last match in the company. They trained together, they made the towns together, they cried together. It would just be nice if they could have, stayed friends. Number 9, Rey Mysterio.
I love love Punk's rivalry with Rey Mysterio. 2010, Punk singing, you know that Punk's singing happy birthday to Rey's daughter. Oh, it's beautiful stuff. That is like, that's the gift right there.
When central midfielder Punk finally got a chance to turn heel in the summer of 2009, it was extremely successful. So successful, in fact, that WWE neglected to write another storyline for him for the rest of the year. As Punk was never one to take such treatment lying down, he went home and wrote himself 14 weeks of TV, and that was the creation of the Straight Edge Society.
I love that. I didn't know that. I didn't know Punk wrote the stuff for the Straight Edge Society. I'm not surprised. He's clearly smart to that shit. I just love the idea that Punk was like, no, here's 14 weeks. Here's 3 months of television for you here.
Definitely the best gimmick work that Punk did in WWE. The best rival he had during that time was Rey Mysterio. Certainly wasn't Big Show. Punk and Mysterio always clicked in the ring, having very fun matches in 2010 at WrestleMania 26, Extreme Rules and Over the Limit, and again at Capital Punishment in 2011. Punk even threw Rey's daughter a birthday party. I mean, really, he crashed Rey's daughter's birthday party, but that's pretty close, I reckon. Look at tiny Aaliyah and still taller than Rey, Dominic.
I love this rivalry so much.
This was heel WWE Punk at his absolute best, sinisterly singing happy birthday to a 9-year-old girl as she ran.
It's freaking fantastic. This is the gift. I love watching this. Oh, I love it so much. Oh, it's beautiful.
Ran away crying. God, maybe I'm the bastard. Number 8, Chris Hero. Just as Chocolate Mousse
This is a rivalry I've never seen, so I can't say anything here.
Punk traveled.
Although Chris Hero is fantastic in the ring, and I wish he would return to some major promotion. Because he could probably still go. But so I do miss seeing Chris Hero in matches. However, I've never watched these two in a match together.
Traveled to Midwest wrestling Colt Cabana. A few years later, he did the exact same thing with Chris Hero in 2002. This match was a defining rivalry in Ian Rotten's IWA Mid-South, a promotion primarily built on thumbtacks, light tubes, and questionable business practices. But when Punk and Hero hit the mat, they made it about wrestling. Great wrestling. Student of the game style wrestling. Some people just have chemistry together, and it is a shame that Punk and Hero never got to wrestle on a bigger stage, besides one tag match on NXT, but between their 90-plus minute 2 out of 3 falls match, several hour-long time limit draws, and their 55-minute tables and ladders match, a match so out of control they literally tried to tear the building they were wrestling in down, there is a solid chance Punk and Hero have spent more time wrestling each other than Roman Reigns has spent defending the Universal title. Number 7, Daniel Bryan. WWE fans who have started watching wrestling in the last 10 years may not know the struggle of loving the style of wrestling that has been popularized in WWE by the likes of Seth Rollins, AJ Styles, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, etc., and only having a pair of wrestlers who wrestle that style at the highest level. This is why in 2012 it was so exciting to see Calendar Man Punk and Daniel Bryan paired together for a lengthy rivalry. Hopefully a rivalry we haven't seen the last of. Should this rivalry have involved...
God, I don't know. I mean, that'd be fun to see. The part that's baffling me about Punk's return to AEW is he's still gonna be babyface, which I don't know how you expect that to work. It can't be done. This whole rivalry in 2012 was fucking weird. I don't like this rivalry in 2012.
AJ Lee proposing to CM Punk in the ring, or AJ Lee mounting Kane, who is to say? But the quality of work between these two could make any strange narrative choices secondary. They had a number of great matches together, but the cream of the crop was certainly their match at Over the Limit, a match that perfectly exemplifies the style they were so good at and the style that WWE was not yet accustomed to. A true technical battle mixed with WWE.
I mean, no, yeah, I guess. I mean, it couldn't main event. It wasn't worthy. You had that scene in Laurinaitis do it, because that's main event worthy. Fuck, why that main event over this?
Main event showmanship, and the crowd ate it up and asked for seconds. Number 6, Eddie Kingston. If you've
a 3-fucking-week feud that changed the fucking game. Eddie, I don't know how this is like I don't know how only these two can make a few-week feud this fucking engaging.
Been watching this greatest rival series of lists, you might know that not very often will you see short, one-and-done rivalries featured over longer, overarching narratives. Well, there is an exception to every rule, and in this case, it is the AEW rivalry between Connor McDavid Punk and Eddie Kingston. They get into a backstage argument, they have one promo to sell a match, and then they wrestle 8 days later. Sounds pretty standard, but what a promo and what a match. The rawness of Kingston's words, the fact that effectively Punk was now in the Cena position and Eddie in the Punk position from a decade earlier, with Punk now judging Eddie the same way Cena had judged him. All building to one of the most anticipated matches of Full Gear 2021. You can really break down every aspect of this fantastic piece of business, from Eddie's empty stare during his entrance to Punk's determined march to the ring, Eddie's cheap shot before the bell, the sheer you attitude that felt just real enough to not be uncomfortable. This remains among a lot of people's favorite AEW programs, and it was all achieved in less than a month. Number 5.
What I will say about,
AEW programs, and it was all
what I will say about this that I love also is it did help for the fact that Eddie's Player Tribune, I think it's what it's called, article thing, came out close to this rivalry. So it really gave more sympathy to Eddie and made Punk more of a villain, and it actually helped way more.
all achieved in less than a month. Number 5, Raven. The uninitiated may think that Ring of Honor was just the home of work rate graps and Cornette's mental collapse, but the early days of ROH were also run on some of the best storylines and rivalries of the day, including but not limited to this rivalry between Charles Martinet Punk and Raven.
Why is he just... The CM things aren't working for me. That ain't working for me.
This is a rivalry that was still being heavily referenced on AEW 2 decades later because that is just how influential it has been. Punk was fueled by his resentment of Raven for having been given superstardom and lost it because of pills and booze. The matches they had were incredibly heated. Oh,
I didn't know that was the That's amazing. I didn't know that was the storyline, that Punk's thing with Raven was that he... Like, you had superstardom, but Raven chose to give it up for... Or, like, made it squander because of booze and alcohol, which, of course, straight edge Punk would have an issue with. I didn't know. That's incredible. I want to watch one of their matches now. Is there any on YouTube?
ultra violent and extremely personal, with Punk and Raven battling in a Clockwork House of Fun match and a dog collar match that served as an inspiration for Punk's best AEW rivalry, which we may or may not hear about later. This was the first rivalry of Punk's career to have the amount of substance that fans would come to expect out of the straight-edge, Chicago-made Punk in the years and promotions to come. Just like, number 4, Jeff Hardy. Higher-ups in WWE...
I love this feud also. Because it's so easy. This is the most easiest feud. And it fucking worked. And they allowed it to work. Because WWE today probably would somehow fuck it up. This is a basic story that worked flawlessly.
WWE didn't think that Cold Macaroni Punk could be a heel during his early years with the company, proving once and for all that not a single person in management watched a moment of his work prior to signing him, but I digress. The first chance he had to prove them wrong, he put on the best rivalry of his WWE career to that point with Jeff Hardy. For the first time, Punk was finally able to sink his teeth into a storyline, and what did his teeth find but finally some delicious food. Punk cashed in Money in the Bank on Jeff Hardy to
I'm sorry, I had to apologize, Reggie. I love this storyline.
thunderous boos 1 year after he cashed in on Edge to rapturous applause. This change in response was the catalyst for Punk's heel turn, as he said he did nothing different, but now the fans were choosing someone else over him. And not just someone else, but someone who lives a toxic lifestyle while he was pristine and straight edge. The matches were all great, especially their TLC match at SummerSlam 2009, but the real essence of this rivalry of the year winner were the promos. Punk's Just Say No promo, his promo at Night of Champions, Punk's masterclass of heel work impersonating Hardy after banishing him from WWE. This was the work that finally catapulted Punk into WWE's main event scene. I guess he could be a heel, huh guys? Number 3, Samoa Joe. When people
These two had amazing matches. Not well, these two did, but that's not who I was thinking. No, there you go. I'll go back. I just want to get these two on the screen. These two can have amazing matches. But what I will say, though, is the quality they could put on then, don't expect in their return match. Don't. Just don't. Them two are going to half-ass that shit. No way can they do that level of intensity. Just, it can't be done. So if you go in there with those standards, of what they used to do back in this time, for their return match, you are going to be majorly disappointed.
Talk about the greatest trilogies in wrestling history, there are a number of rivalries that have to come to mind. Flair Steamboat, FTR Briscoes, Rock Austin, Styles Cena, but one that absolutely must be among them is Christian McCaffrey Punk and Samoa Joe. After his highly personal rivalry with Raven in 2003, Punk had earned top contender status for the ROH World Championship in 2004. Their trilogy of ROH title matches were the crown jewel in Joe's legendary title reign, and yet another beacon drawing eyes onto Ring of Honor at the time. It is a bold claim, but I feel comfortable saying that Samoa Joe is CM Punk's greatest in-ring rival. Two 60-minute draws, the second of which was an honest-to-God 5-star classic, and maybe the best match of Punk's career, and the final match where Joe finally defeated Punk to retain his title. 3 magical matches sewn together with incredible chemistry. Although I guess that would make them 3 scientific matches. Number 2, John Cena. While the summer
Because I know who number 1 is then. And I think this one's better than MJF. I think Cena's better than MJF because of the story of how it works. To CM Punk, the poster guy. John Cena, the poster guy, and CM Punk, the fan guy. Does that make sense? Like the fan favorite versus the WWE's favorite. And that's why they collide. And it works so perfectly. I think the Cena rivalry is better than MJF.
Summer of Punk circa 2011 ended up being about 50% of what it should have been. No one will ever be able to minimize the sheer awesomeness that was the Money in the Bank 2011 pay-per-view cycle. When Chuck Mosley Punk sat down on the entrance ramp to air his grievances with John Cena and the rest of WWE, he brought a lot of people back to a previously stale WWE product, and the response to the now legendary pipe bomb created probably the greatest environment for a non-Big Four WWE pay-per-view at Money in the Bank. I rewatched this match recently, and it is a proper 5-star match. And
a banger, a fucking banger is CM Punk. If you have not watched, sorry, I didn't like the way that looked. If you have not watched CM Punk, John Cena, Money in the Bank 2011, find a way to watch it any way you can. Watch that match alone. It is incredible.
Best in WWE history comfortably. CM Punk, the anti-authority rebel taking on the walking embodiment of WWE, was a perfect dynamic, whether it be during the summer of 2011 or following Punk's 2012 heel turn, with their September 2012 promo in Montreal recapturing the same authenticity that had fueled their rivalry the year before. Their Night of Champions draw is severely underrated as another great match between them, and their final match, you know, the one with the pile driver, perfectly capped off their feud with Cena finally getting his win over Punk in the last time they would ever come face to face. One of the greatest rivalries in WWE since the turn of the century, but for Punk, there was one. You already know what it is. Number 1, MJF.
I disagree that it's the best one. I know I'm going to get arguments, but I think the Cena one tops this.
How do you even sum up the rivalry between Captain Marvel Punk and MJF in a couple hundred words? The first storyline Punk had in AEW that was longer than a few weeks, this was what everyone was hoping for when Punk returned to wrestling after 7 years. Yes, the promos were incredible. Yes, the matches were incredible, but what this list is really about is what the rivalry did for both guys. This rivalry was what made MJF a fully formed character, stripping away the layers upon layers of heel shtick that had been built up on top of a traumatized young man. This was MJF's villain origin story, and the first time we had seen him be more than the insult-slinging silver-tongued devil he had been during the first 3 years of AEW. For Punk, this rivalry was a chance for him to confront the consequences of his actions, and Lord knows it is difficult to write that about CM Punk, but work with me here. This was a rivalry that delved deeper and deeper into these characters as it went on. Whereas it started as two of the best talkers in the business throwing excellent barbs at one another, it became a story about two damaged individuals coming to grips with where their choices had left them. Punk trying to do better, and MJF accepting his role as the villain. I believe this to be on the short list of the best wrestling storylines ever told and the best piece of business CM Punk has ever been part of. To be continued? Question mark? And that's our list, man.
Obviously, me and Tempest are going to disagree here, which is okay, but I think the Cedar Ravi's better. But you let me know here in the comments. What is your favorite CM Punk Ravi? Let me know in the comments. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all for the next one.